Hello, I'm Katherine Artines, and this is Perfect Embroidery Pro Introductory Video number 3. This video is a continuation from Intro Video number 2. You'll notice that the same design screens are open and that I reference certain procedures we did previously. I thought you might prefer 2 shorter videos to one that was over an hour long. I consider all 3 to be introductory videos, because I feel the information in them is all good beginning knowledge on moving around within the software and doing basic procedures. Having watched and practiced right along with me, you'll have a solid foundation and be comfortable with understanding past webinars and even joining in the next one. Remember that each of these designs we first accessed by going through File, Open. We have another way to access designs as well. I'll click on a new screen. Where we have been playing in Sequence View, we notice the Sequence tab beneath it, and right next to it is the Library tab. Clicking on Library brings us into the folders that are part of the software. From my childhood to this very day, I love going to the library. All of the joy offered there is free. I get the same feeling from visiting the library in Perfect Embroidery Pro. It provides easy access to hundreds of free designs given to you upon purchasing Perfect Embroidery Pro and the other software in the Inspiration series from Dime. You see a gray bar here. I can get my two-headed black arrows and drag that down just a bit so we can see more above. The two sections are called the Folder section and the Design Viewer. The Folders shows all the folders under the parent folder Designs. You see that that has been expanded. We have multiple folders underneath it. The Dime Free Designs also has subfolders. We know that by the plus sign. Yet if we see folders with no plus sign, then they do not have subfolders underneath. This Migrated Designs folder is a folder containing the designs brought over if you had owned the FTC program when you first installed Perfect Embroidery Pro. If you have purchased Perfect Embroidery Pro since 2015, you may not see that folder at all. The Size Viewer, we know that we can click and drag that bar up or down as we would like. And at this point, let's go ahead and expand our Dime Free Designs. Once we do that, we see month with year in alphabetical order, all nicely organized for our free designs. Another big shout out to Great Notions for giving us not only the free designs with each software package, but also free designs every month. We'll scroll down and find July 2015. Clicking on that month, you see that we are given the designs in that folder. I'll get that gray bar and scoot up just a little bit, scroll so that I know what folder is chosen, and I can see those designs below. I can choose to scroll and see all of those designs in that particular folder. We come to the very bottom, and this happens to be the design that we'd like to play with. All I need do is click on that design and drag it over and drop it on the screen. Notice that this file does have a file name, of course, but when I click and drag it over to my clean screen, it is brought into a clean screen with that generic design and a number with it. So I am not in the original design. I'll turn on my 3D so I can see that. And what we would like to do here is to remove the word paradise. Let's switch back to our sequence view. And as we do that, you can see that everything is blue highlighted because when we click and drag from the library, the design comes in grouped. All we need to do is come up to our toolbar and click on Ungroup, and then that design is now individual objects. As we look in Sequence View, I can tell which of these colors represents the word paradise. If I click on that, I see a larger box around more than just the word paradise. So that tells me that parts of the butterflies also are including this color. If you're not sure what is being included in those butterflies, Very often I will click on a goofy color. I'll go ahead and use this plum color because it's not used in the design at all. But you can see that once I do that, I have other parts of the design in both of these butterflies that are also that color. It might be tough to isolate just those butterflies. Even if I were to try my zoom and zoom in on that butterfly using my select, trying to isolate that plum color, and I see that I'm on a satin, and I may or may not have chosen that, so it becomes sort of a hunt and peck at this point. Let's zoom back out and use our hide feature on the sequence bar to our great advantage. Come on over to sequence, right click. First thing I want to do is to collapse all of them. Now I'm going to right click, and in this case ask it to hide all. It's much easier if I hide all of them and then come back to my one color I want, which is my words and portions of the butterfly, click on the faded eye, and I've isolated just those two. Now I make it easier for myself to select just those two areas. I'll hold down my control key and select the other. I'm going to change that to a different color. Having done so, I've made it very easy for me to isolate my word, hit the delete on the keyboard, and it's gone. At this point, I would right click and show all of the design. If I click and drag around my butterfly and move it down a bit, I now have the ability to isolate just my orange flower, click and drag around it, right click from my shortcut menu, choose to cut, come over to a clean design page, right click, paste, turn on my 3D. It is not quite in the center, so let's right click in the ruler, come down to center origin, drop that zoom to 200%, and you can see that I have isolated just that orange flower. If I chose to do a file, save as, I could give this flower its own name and have it saved as a separate file that I could bring to some other project in the future. I could also do the same with my two butterflies, selecting them, right click in the ruler, center origin, drop that back just a little bit, and then do a file, save as, give the butterflies their own name. If I choose to do that, I've taken our original Paradise design. I have that one as free. I then would have my butterflies and I would have my orange flower. I've added to my stash of free designs. Let's pull up a new screen. We'll go back into our library, scroll up to the top. I'd like to collapse my free designs, scroll down a little bit, and go back into our Perfect Embroidery Pro free designs. When I select that, you see the designs become available down here in the lower portion, the design viewer. I could scroll through all of those designs. We know there are many, many designs, so it would take me quite a while to scroll through them to find the design I would like. So instead, we have another option. Down here in the lower portion, I can do a right click. Right click brings up a shortcut menu. In this case, we have the option to show contents. It brings us into our screen. All I need to do is maximize that. Back into our original design screen where all of our designs were listed from before. I could scroll down 1, 2, 3 clicks to find my corkscrew ladybug. Having selected it, I'll do that double click to bring it up on our screen, turn on my 3D, drop this back a bit to 200, and we'll make this edit an easy one. Click on Sequence, choose the black area, hold down Control, choose the gray area, and I'm simply going to delete both of those from the ladybug. I have isolated just this fun corkscrew. Select all, right click, center origin, drop that zoom back to 200, and at this point I have once again altered an original design. Just to refresh, we're going to go under File, Save As. We have to give ourselves the chance to give this design a new file name so that we don't override the original. Prior to this, I have simply added a KA to the end of the numbers, but I could delete what is there, start with a KA, my own initials, and name this corkscrew. I'll go ahead and save it. If I wanted to be able to stitch out this design, remember I need to give that second portion of this save as. I'll leave that name, do my drop down for save as type, find that PEZ file for my Baby Lock machines, and save that design. When we did that save, did we really pay attention to where it went? Let's do that file, save as. And we notice the name up here, but very important, we see it was saved in the Perfect Embroidery Pro Free Designs folder. For right now, that's okay. We know where it is. But for a better way to organize your embroidery designs, you would want to watch the Files and Folders video, which would explain to you how you might want to go into the hard drive and create your own set of folders for the designs that you choose to work with. We'll go ahead and save that design, and we're brought back into our screen. Let's review how we have opened files and what that does to the original file. It is very important that you understand your options so you don't accidentally change the original file. If we do a File, Open, here again brought into our Perfect Embroidery Pro Free Designs, and we'll just double click this purple flower. We are in the original design in a clean screen. We see the name of that design right here on our tab and also up here on our title bar. Let's change that first color to something other than brown. Let's go in and find a pretty yellow and OK that, and we'll change that purple to yellow. We have made a change to the original design. We need to do that File, Save As, name our new flower. I'll just put my KA after it. It is in the C2S format, and do a save. By doing that save as, I have guaranteed not to have overridden the original. Let's do a File, Open, and right here you see my flower in front of the purple flower. Because I chose to leave the number portion of the file, it has placed mine in front. That actually is a review of filing rules because 6806 with a space comes before 6806 dot. Nothing comes before something. Again, a review of filing rules is covered in that video, Understanding Files and Folders. We'll cancel out of here, go back to a clean screen, and come back to Library to make sure that we understand what is happening when we drag over. We'll scroll down a little bit to find the coffee cup and click and drag to place that on the screen. Again, once we do a click and drag, we are in a new screen that has not yet been named, and neither does it bring over the original file name. You see that we're in Design 11. When we drag from the library, it really is a merge, which is joining the design onto the current screen. In this case, one with no name. If we were to click on Jam and drag that over to the screen, we see both designs on there, but yet it did not bring over the name of Jam either. We are still in design number 11. If we were to click on New for a clean screen and we go under File, Merge, we'll find just a cute little design to use, Sweet Dreams, brought onto our screen. That File Merge did the same thing. It brought our design onto a clean design screen. It joined that design with what was currently up. Once again, no name on this design. It has gone for the generic design number 12. This merge is the same as when we drag a design from the library onto the screen and merge that design to a clean screen. Until you are very comfortable with the differences between save and save as, always do a save as. It might be a little more work in the long run, but it's a safer procedure. At some point, you may notice that the files that are in the library in Perfect Embroidery Pro Free Designs are not in the same order as they are if we do a file open. If I scroll back to the top, notice this gold design and blue anchor design. If I were to go under File Open and brought back into the same folder, you see two different designs, starting off a whole different way that these designs are brought in. The explanation for that is those that are in Perfect Embroidery Pro Free Designs, if we come through the File and Open, these files are in true numerical order: 6054, 6181, 6537, etc. They'll go all the way to the very bottom of our list in alpha order. You'll also notice that designs that I named with the KA are listed after the numbers because numbers come before letters. If we were to go back under Library, you see that it starts out with 1, 0s, and so forth, and it might look like it's in numerical order, but it really is not. This is in true filing order, where it reads your numbers from left to right. 10338 comes before 11, so it's reading from the left of all of our numbers. We can see this explained even better if we come down to the bottom of the list of designs that are free, and we see these last two. 98772 is a greater numerical value than 9948, but if we were reading left to right, we have 98 and 99. So two different ways the designs are listed if they are not in the same order. In any well-designed software, you should have the ability to change defaults. Defaults are the value settings set by the programmer for each tool or property given so that errors in the software don't occur. A run stitch must have a stitch length or it could not be generated. It is an average value that works reasonably well under average conditions, sort of a one-size-fits-all. As your digitizing knowledge increases, you'll be able to make well-informed choices for changing stitch length, density, underlay, and so forth. The defaults I'd like to bring to your attention affect how you see things on your design page. There are others you'll see, but I strongly suggest you leave some of them alone until you have more experience. The defaults we may change can be found under Tools, General Options. You see on the left here the areas for your options. Environment is the first one chosen. Under Units, it does make sense for you to choose your preference for metric or inches. The default style is actually referring to the default type of fabric you use most often, obviously set to normal. But if you were someone who used cotton almost all of the time, you might want to come down to Woven Medium Smooth, where you see cotton, and make that your default choice for your digitizing. Certainly you would want to change your default thread chart. As a drop-down arrow, I would scroll up, and I have set mine to the Brother Embroidery. That doesn't have very many threads in it, but generally I'm just concerned about color and not the specific thread. If you are someone who has a complete selection of, let's say, Madeira Poly Neon, then you might want to make that your default thread chart. We'll click on Machines. Under Machine, I would suggest you leave all of these defaults as is for the time being. Clicking on Grid. Grid would be an area that you would go ahead and set your choices. For your horizontal and vertical lines, the spacing defaults to 1/2 inch. whether or not you want to maintain that aspect ratio to keep them the same distance, whether or not you want snap to grid on, and do you prefer your grid lines shown as lines or dots? Currently, I do not have a grid on. I prefer not to see the grid all of the time when I'm doing my digitizing. The next option is your digitizing. Again, this would be an area where you would want to leave those defaults until you gain more knowledge. Under View, there's a couple of these that you might want to change. I have my highlight selection off. By default, it does come with a check mark in it, and the default is set to blue. I'll leave that on for right now, so when we return to the screen, you can see what it does. This option you might choose to change, the ability to show property tabs as icons. What this is referring to is over here on your property box, showing those as icons. I have my check mark. This is what it looks like. We'll go ahead and remove that so that you can see once we come out of our options what that change will be. The rest are up to you whether or not you want to leave the defaults or not. I have left the defaults for all others. So the final area is auto-based. Now under here, I have changed the defaults. This is a nice button to use if you've played around and you don't know what the defaults are. The stitch length for the base stitch is a 6 millimeter. I've simply upped that just a little bit to an 8, so it's easier for me to pick that out when I'm finished. And then I do slide this bar all the way over to the maximum of 10 millimeter. This is talking about how far it will appear past the outer edge of your embroidery. So at this point, we'll go ahead and OK it and take a look at the changes that we've made. First of all, I do have this area selected. Remember how we turned that highlight on and the default is blue? So you see what happens here. Once it is selected, you can't really see the stitching that well through it. The other thing we changed, remember how these were icons? Well, now they're words. You might wish to put them as words, but if you do, you will need to use your scroll bar to see the remainder of those. Finally, we played around with the basting. I'll select all my item, come up here to the Auto Baste, click on Auto Baste, and what that does, let me double click on our zoom so you can see the whole screen. By doing the Auto Baste, it automatically placed this square around my design. The idea being here that if I were going to stitch this out on a towel or something that had a great deal of texture or nap, I would want to use some type of film or solvay placed over that towel so that the stitches are going to lay on the film or solvay rather than get lost in all that terry cloth. This basting then will be the first thing that stitches out and tacks down that film or solvay to my project. It will always appear as the first line item and it will always be black. You can see the distance, that 10 millimeter is right in here from the farthest away from the design. I just like to give myself that much room. If your design just fits in the hoop you have chosen, you might wish to change that basting to be tighter around the design so it doesn't ask you for a larger hoop. Let me go back in to Tools, General Options, and I'm going to change under View, remove that check mark for highlighted section, and I'm going to put my check mark back in Show Property Tabs. I'll OK that. Now when I select something, do you see how I can still view the stitching that is in that selection? Also, by placing my property tabs to be icons, I can see all of them at one time. Remember too that if you don't remember what that icon means, you simply rest on the icon and that tooltip will pop up for you. At this point, we have a number of designs open. Lots of tabs going across the bottom. You would want to click on each of those and decide whether we're going to save it or not. I can click on the X for each tab. It's going to come up and ask me, do I want to save? No, I don't. I come back to this one that I've made. I can click on the X and say no to save, and so forth. I could go back through each of those tabs. You also have the option to do File, Close All. It will come up and ask you for each individual design whether you'd like to save or not. Having stayed with me through this video, and remember you can rewatch it as often as you like, pause it when you need to, go back and repeat a section, you should be more comfortable with working with free designs, editing stitches, changing colors, isolating parts of a design with the eyeball. All in all, just more comfortable with using Perfect Embroidery Pro, which was my intent. Don't forget that you also have a world of other resources from Dime where you can join the forum and watch the webinars. I'm Katherine Artines, and I'm glad you joined me today. Now, go create something fun in your new software, Perfect Embroidery Pro.